Myth. Seizing Russian state assets is illegal under international law. Fact. International law allows countermeasures against states that violate international obligations. Russia's invasion of Ukraine, a blatant breach of the UN Charter and the International Court of Justice rulings, creates a clear legal grounds. Seizing aggressor state assets is not new. After Iraq invaded Kuwait in 1990, UN Security Council resolutions enabled the use of Iraqi assets for compensation. Similarly, Iran's assets were used after its illegal seizure of the U.S. Embassy in 1979. In short, Russia cannot shield its crimes behind the same laws it has torn apart. So another myth, confiscating Russian assets will destroy European financial credibility. In fact, freezing 300 billion did not destabilize Europe's market. The euro remains a leading reserve currency. Moreover, by enforcing consequences for aggression, Europe strengthened its credibility as a defender of law rather than a haven for aggressor funds. Financial systems thrive when rules are enforced, not when impunity is tolerated. Another myth. We must respect Russia's sovereign immunity no matter what. Well, the fact sovereign immunity protects lawful state actions, not military aggression, war crimes, or genocide. International law allows exceptions in cases of grave violations. Russia forfeit any claim to immunity when it launched an illegal war, committed mass atrocities, and ignored binding ICJ orders. The principle of no rights from illegal acts applies. Russia cannot use international law as a weapon after shattering it. Another myth. If we seize assets, China and Saudi Arabia will pull their money out of Europe. In fact, no such exodus occurred when assets were frozen in 2022. Central banks still hold over 89% of their reserves in US, EU, Japan, and UK institutions. Moreover, a multilateral action by the G7 and EU would prevent any perception of arbitrariness. Strategic strength deters opportunism. Weakness invites it. Another myth. Using only the profits is sufficient. Well, the fact the profits from frozen Russian assets yield 3 to 4 billion annually, a fraction of what is needed. Meanwhile, Ukraine's reconstruction needs exceeded 500 billion and are growing daily. Continuing to skim the profits while leaving the principal untouched shifts the reconstruction burden onto European taxpayers and rewards Moscow by preserving its frozen capital as a future bargaining chip. True justice requires using the assets themselves. Another myth. Seizing assets will set a dangerous precedent. Fact, there is a precedent for this action in exceptional cases involving unlawful aggression. The case of Iraq and Kuwait and Iran and the US. And Russia's war is exceptional. Europe has not seen such a state-sponsored destruction since 1945. Failing to act would set a real dangerous precedent that war crimes and territorial conquest pay off if you are large enough. We must show that lawbreakers lose everything they gamble, including their sovereign wealth. Another myth. Seizing central bank assets is an act of war. In fact, countermeasures, including asset seizures, are lawful acts of enforcement, not armed attacks. If Europe accepts Russia's propaganda framing, it concedes moral and legal ground unnecessarily. Russia's actual acts of war, mass killings, bombing civilians, abducting children. Europe's lawful defense of the international order is no escalation. It is self-respect.